Are you ready for the weekend yet? We have events, news, and a guest for you to enjoy this Lake Life weekend. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lake Life Weekend Podcast. I'm Dirk, I'm your host, and we are in week 25 of the summer season 2020. Thank you for tuning in, and we have Sherri Hanson with us in the program that you will hear in a little bit, and she will speak about some of the Vergas history, her family story, the impact of her father's engagement to the community. And then, of course, the highlight of that interview will be the Vergas Trail with all its different phases and parts. And it's a really, really nice community project for you to explore. It's a good 5K walk when it's all done from downtown Vergas down to the beach and along a walk on the water and then right along to Long Lake. So stay tuned for the complete interview with Sherri. And I also want you to go to our website, wkndnow.com. It's a part of the Lake Life Weekend environment. And we created finally our map with lots of destinations and places to go to find in Lakes Country. Help us by adding to the map some destinations from areas where you can walk the dog or where you like to go hiking or some things like restaurants. Check that out and tell us what you think. Also go to our Facebook page. We are giving away some swag. We have some shirts and little things that we are giving away to our fans here once in a while. So check that out too. And if you have any other ideas, feel free to email us to hello@lakelifeweekend.com with feedback, critique, ideas, and such things. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. And also this week is when our summer magazine is out on the stand, so you can pick it up in Fargo-Moorhead at all the Hornbacher locations, and then in Lakes Country we are distributing it throughout the area at gas stations, hotels, grocery stores, restaurants. So keep an eye out. If you would like us to send you one, you can subscribe to our mailing list. You can email us or you can contact us over Facebook and we will send you a copy in the mail too. So now enjoy our interview with Sherri Hanson about Vergas Trail and have a great weekend ahead. Welcome back to our Lake Life Weekend podcast program. I'm here with Sherri Hanson. Hi, Sherri.
Hey, Dirk. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Thank you for coming. And we are not recording in our traditional camper because it's too tight, we thought. So we are sitting pretty far away across our ping pong table.
Totally social distanced.
Social distanced, which is the new. And it's okay.
It is okay.
It's totally okay. And before we deep dive into Vergas and you tell a little bit about yourself, Sherri, you have been in our program once before. The reason why I invited you is, first of all, most people know I live by Vergas. Vergas is kind of my home, my elected home.
Good place to call home, Dirk.
I really enjoy Vergas, and I think most people know that. And you have been very, what's the right term? Not only involved, but I think crucial to the development of the Vergas Trail, as I understand.
I'm on the committee. A lot of people are crucial to it. I probably have been the biggest cheerleader, and so maybe you always need one of those on it to make sure that it keeps motivated, keep going.
Right.
So maybe that's more better.
Okay, good. No, I appreciate that. Yes, it took more than one person.
Definitely.
But I know that you have a deep love for Vergas and a deep love for the trail. That's kind of what I meant. So yeah,
Right.
Thank you for correcting me. So you don't want to take all the credit. Okay, good.
Absolutely not.
No, good. But I would like to talk to you about Vergas Trail and what it all entails. We have a story in our upcoming magazine as well about Vergas and the Vergas Trail, which I truly enjoy because Oscar and I are going there often for a walk, and Harry is also with me. That's kind of our walking and scenic walk right on the lake of Long Lake. But before we talk about that, you are coming from a very known and large family, local. Hanson has multiple businesses.
Yes, in 1933, my grandfather moved his family from Pelican Rapids to Vergas when the main hardware store building had gone bankrupt. It was during that time in the 30s, and he recognized that had gone bankrupt, and so he brought his wife, my grandma Anna, and my father and his twin brother Roger and Rodney, over on a drive and said, I think we can start a hardware store here. And I think one of the things that is really pertinent to times right now is I remember the story of my grandmother saying, but Hank, will the German community accept us Norwegians? And it was a big thing at that time, because you had your Germans, they had created their community, and if a Swedish or Norwegian family moved in, it's like if somebody from a different country moves into one of our areas right now, and I always remember him having the confidence and going into it and being fully embraced by that German community, and then more Norwegians and Swedes followed from that area. And so I think there's a lesson in that, and because we made it, now when I think of Vergas, I don't think of anywhere else as home. And that could not have happened if he had not been embraced at that time.
Interesting. So your grandparents moved 1933 from
Pelican Rapids. My grandfather was actually born in Norway, and my grandmother was born in Sweden. And when they emigrated over here, their families lived just outside of Pelican Rapids. My grandfather got his experience there in Pelican Rapids through the retail and hardware. And then in 33, they moved to Vergas, and he was Hank Hanson, and then called Hardware Hank, and so he started the hardware store, Hardware Hank. My dad and his twin brother were 8 years old, and that's when they started behind the counter, and were working in the hardware store. And my dad, continued in the hardware store until he went into politics, and at that time, him and his brother Rodney Hanson split the hardware store, where Rodney went into the plumbing business, and then my father sold the hardware store to the present owner now. But
so wait.
Okay.
So that's interesting.
Yes.
A couple of things before I jump back into the family history. Vergas was already called Vergas because it was once Altona.
Correct. It started out as Altona, and the story with that is that there was another Altona.
And the mail got mixed up?
And so the train line and the depot stops got confusing. And so the Vergas changed their name from Altona.
Because there's a suburb in Hamburg Altona. It's a big main train station to Altona. So it's very German. So I was always thinking that maybe from Hamburg coming, who knows?
And most likely because it was it's very dominant German community, especially at that time it was.
Yeah. And then your grandfather took over the hardware store. Your dad and his brother Rodney took over the store together, and then your uncle added the plumbing. I mean, this all still exists.
Correct. It also
exists.
Yeah.
And but like you said a keyword. First of all, you said politics, which I want to go into. Your father being a state senator.
He started as a representative, senator, and then into public utilities.
Yeah, fascinating actually. But you also mentioned Hardware Hank.
Yes.
And that's where I love the entrepreneurial history. So Hardware Hank, the Hardware Hank that we know today, that still exists. Isn't it a chain?
It wasn't at that time, and my grandfather took on the Hardware Hank. He was called Hardware Hank, but he is not the original Hardware Hank chain that we see now.
Oh, yeah. So he happened to be called Hank,
that, and then. I think it's what you do is you buy into, like, if you buy into Ace Hardware, if you buy into Hardware Hank, and so he did the Hardware Hank.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, no, I probably would not be in Vergas anymore if I was the heiress of a Hardware Hank business.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But who knows? Maybe so.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not, right?
Okay, but like, so now we got that decluttered.
Decluttered, yes. Okay.
And tell us a little bit more about your dad then. He went to St. Paul?
Right, and so he, like I said, he was very involved in the community of Vergas, the fire department, commercial club, Lions, investment club, and all that. And I think those kind of things made him realize that maybe he could make a difference somewhere else. And so when the opportunity came up, he ran for state representative and went down there and obviously won the, not obviously, but obviously because he was. And so he ran the race and he was elected and went on to be a state representative. And then he was from there redistricting, made the opportunity to become a state senator. And then when he was no longer he didn't run then, but then he was Governor Quee appointed him to public utilities. So he was down there probably 20 years, and where my mom and us kids stayed back in Vergas.
I was gonna say, so he had an apartment, like he just had the, and then he came home.
Different places that he would stay, and then but he would come home every weekend, work in the hardware store, and then
Really?
it just got to be too much. In the late 70s is when he sold the hardware store. And because he was at that time on the public utilities and needed to be down there more. When he retired from that, he came back to Vergas and lived here full time, and then was mayor of Vergas for like 3 different terms.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so, he continued with his public service, but got a little disillusioned maybe by politics and the way, my dad started in
You did?
No, he did.
He did.
Because he started in the years, the early years in the 60s when politicians were still effective.
Yeah.
Their voices would be heard a little bit more.
In the community?
In
or down
statewide, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe statewide. I think he was still heard in the community, but I think his eyes were open to the fact of, he was one of many, and maybe got a little disillusioned by being that one person sometimes that I always remember growing up hearing there was such a disparity between outstate Minnesota and metro Minnesota, and trying to make a difference. As a family, we have some great mementos of his speeches, and in fact, during the COVID now, when you've had more time to be at home, I've been going through drawers and I've been reading some of those old speeches, and they're maybe pertinent to that time, but they can also be applied to what's going on now too. That just common sense and looking out for your fellow person and deregulation. He was always about deregulation. You just don't need to. What you're doing in metro Minnesota just maybe does not pertain to what's going on here in rural Minnesota. And he was always a real champion for the small town business guy. And having been in small town business is probably why.
So you have been influenced with, let's maybe call it public service.
Definitely. I don't know why all of my family, is interested in it and definitely have a public servant heart. I think because I started at such a young age working at the bank and was a public figure there, and a very easy person to be in contact with, that I probably of my siblings, I have 4 other siblings, am more into the public service than any of them were, and I think it's just circumstantial and because of my job.
Yeah, I know that you are on multiple, or you have roles at the community.
Yeah.
You are engaged in the community club.
Vergas Community Club, and then you get into, and the Vergas investors, the community funds. It's gotten to be interesting, as you gotten, at this point right now in my life, and I didn't see it happening so much until I got to this point of, first my father died, and then Gordon Dahlgren died, and then my uncle Rodney died, Ronnie Goodman, all these pivotal leaders of the Vergas community. And, at the passing of each one of them, you recognized the void, and then you recognized what they had contributed to the community. And so then you had different people pick up the slack and maybe take this position and do this, and maybe try to figure out how to continue making sure that your community is staying vital and staying true to, what the founding people wanted with that community. Well, now with all those people passing, I feel the torch has been passed.
To whom?
To me, sometimes.
Okay, I was going to say.
Because, and not only to me, but I mean, personally, I feel that, and it's given me pause to just sit back and realize that I have a huge responsibility.
I was just going to say it's a responsibility. Mm-hmm.
And so then you, as I'm sure they did, you wonder, am I up to it? Am I doing the right thing? What is the best thing for the community? But that's on my mind. When I go for a bike ride, I'm looking at the park and saying, are we doing the best that we can be doing here? If not, who can I talk to? When I look at, there is not a time where I drive uptown where I remember my father every day, he would take his drive through Vergas. I mean, obviously anybody who knows Vergas, that takes, just a few minutes. And it didn't dawn on me until I started doing it myself. What he was doing is seeing, okay, what can I do to make sure that things are going good here? Or do I notice that this person, I haven't seen them for a while. Do I need to talk to them to see if their business is going okay? And that drive through town just makes you realize that, you have a responsibility. And I guess I put a call out to anybody who lives in the community of Vergas. I hope that they have that same responsibility feeling. They maybe don't have the avenues and they maybe don't have the time to be on committees, but they certainly have the voice.
Yeah, we could apply that to any community, but
yes,
it's a wonderful work. I have called you, I think, just to your face, the unofficial mayor, and I don't want to offend Mayor Harstick at all, and I mean it in a grin, with a grin. But I know that you're doing a lot, as I met you few years ago already, at least 4. And I have tried to help you with the Looney Day project here and there. Definitely as much as I can. But I see how you whip through the community, and you have boxes full of records, and you're very passionate. I think you have been engaged with the Centennial book. I think we looked at that at some point too. So I know for a fact, and I'm glad to hear that you feel responsibility, and maybe in the future you can help keep the community cohesive.
Yes.
But you are shaping future, and we can only shape future forthgoing. And now I really think it's interesting to dive into the future of Vergas with one of the few boardwalks. Well, actually, I don't know how many boardwalks in Minnesota, but my point is we have over a mile of walkable path from downtown to, in the future, the boat landing, correct? So
Correct.
How many meters, how many miles, and is it 1 point something?
I think from the in and out, it'll be over 3 miles.
Over 3 miles?
Yeah, over 3 miles.
So 5K.
Right.
It's a 5K.
In fact, if we were able to have Looney Days this year, we were going to do our 5K down through the boardwalk.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
And
I
want to back up 1 second, though,
please.
when you were talking about, the unofficial mayor, because there was always something that my dad told me, and it was like, Sherri, it's like, you don't have to be the mayor to get things done. You, a lot of times, can get a lot more done by not being the mayor and just helping and giving your opinion, recognizing. And so he when he was in the legislature, I remember him always saying, a lot more bills are written and decided on over a beer and a burger after session is over for the day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true. It's just having that communication. And I think that's one of the nice things about Vergas is being able to just go and talk to any of the council member or the mayor, or walk into the city office and just bounce ideas off and
Few boundaries.
Yep, yeah, and you mature as you realize they're not going to do everything that you think is right, but you also create the ideas and things like that.
Now, I enjoy the community. I think they're open. Of course, they're
Yes.
A small town, but like they have been dynamic and they are growing in a way. And let's how did that idea of a boardwalk? How did that all happen?
Well,
I
the
mean,
boardwalk, Dirk.
or the
is
whole walk. I mean, we
yeah.
have Looney Park. Explain a
Right.
little bit the
Sure.
geographics, please.
You know, the boardwalk is the part of the third phase, so I'll get into that. But growing up again, I go back to my dad. He always we lived down by a little bit past the Loon, and then of course he had the hardware store up on Main Street. And us kids would, run back and forth with our bikes and running, walking and stuff uptown. And anybody who's driven that little path through Vergas and that recognizes if you have 5 kids, walking along.
It's a
there,
highway.
It's a highway. It's a highway. And the speed limit's 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's not safe. And he was always fearful of that. And he always said, I wish we could just get some kind of a walking path so that you kids, he was thinking of us kids, but, and then he would say, wouldn't that be nice to get, kids be able to walk down to the beach and things like that. And so he always kind of talked about it. And then just, it was always with like, make sure you're safe when you're coming uptown. And it just got dropped. Well, when my father passed away in 2005, our family benefited from just wonderful memorials, and we were sitting around one night as a family and trying to decide how this could benefit the community of Vergas, because that's what my dad would have wanted. And it came to us that that's something he always wanted. Well, in our mind, it was like, oh, this will be great. We'll just get this guy that we know with a bulldozer, and we'll just bulldoze a little path
Easy,
along
we'll
there.
do it.
It's going to be so easy, a couple of beers, we'll hand him and it'll be great, and we can have it done. Well, fast forward 3 years, and how many thousands of dollars, and permits, and retaining walls, and DNR, and MnDOT,
And we're talking about the little tart walkway, bikeway, off to, what is it, Highway 4?
Yes, off of Highway 4, from Main Street, Vergas, with the fence, with the wooden fence
Past
by
the
it.
railroad tracks?
Past the railroad tracks, down in front of the apartment buildings, and by assisted living, and then where the railing is, and then it lands right there at the parking lot of the Long Lake Beach.
Of the beach. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that took many hundreds of $1,000s of
Really?
grant money that we were fortunate to get. We had Cal Larson and Bud Nornis working very hard. They were both legislators at that time, and were very supportive of it. And so we got that first phase,
In 2007,
yes.
8.
You're right in that. Yeah. Well, no, it started in 2008. We broke ground. And then, so it probably would have been in 2009 when that was completed.
Oh, yeah, okay, so a decade old.
Right. And then
And the park was already there.
the park was already there. The city of Vergas was, that was on state highway land, and there's like 100-year lease on that. That the city of Vergas just has that. And Vergas is so fortunate to have that natural resource and that park and the Loon, which of course
There's picnic shelters, there's
all
little
of that.
barbecues, there's
Yes, it's
restrooms even.
it's just beautiful. And so
There's even
it
a
was-
harbor. You can dock your boat in there.
they can put their boat in there. It used to be the public water access. I remember as a young person when it was that, and then it was a smart move by the DNR to move that, because it got to be too close to traffic for everybody, and it just wasn't safe. But then you recognize, okay, people are putting their boats here, and they're walking uptown and getting ice cream. They're walking uptown to have a burger. They're walking from town, and their kids are safely getting down there and being able to swim. And it was just
I've seen
awesome.
growing activity in the past years.
It has.
When I first moved 5 years ago, it's my 6th summer, I believe. It seemed fairly empty. I was fairly surprised. But the past 3 summers, every weekend I see, it's not crowded, it's not overcrowded.
Right.
It's comfortably being used.
Right.
I love it.
And it's nice because I'm on the park board, and we're constantly looking at ways we're expanding the beach this year with more sand.
Yeah, please, more sand. It's a little hard.
We're unfortunately not going to be able to put the swimming dock in.
Why is that?
There's a regulation right now that Governor Walz has out there for, it needs a sanitation schedule that, even if with the sanitation schedule, they're not advising cities to put the docks in.
I was thinking that.
The fishing docks had already gone in, and so there wasn't a choice on that.
It's always in. It's swimming. Isn't it always in the winter? That fishing dock?
No, they all come. Well, the fishing dock, the pier stays in. Yes, that one's always in. But the other slip dock, had already gotten put in for opening fishing.
Yeah, I see.
But the actual swimming dock, I just talked to the city council the other day, and they are not going to put that in.
I see.
But the park board is constantly looking ways to, we're looking at how to brush it out more so you can have more access, along there and to the lake in front of the loon maybe, and back down by some of the picnic shelters. And that is going to just spread it out more for people to maybe just have a little picnic down further away, especially when they're asking us to social distance now. It's going to give more opportunity for that. So then we get into the phase that you're talking about with the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. And isn't it beautiful?
It looks awesome.
My son works for Otter Tail County Water Patrol, and his boss through Otter Tail County just came through there not too long ago and commented on it that this is going to be one of the premier areas for people to have that scenic walk, because you can walk the boardwalk. We're hoping within the next couple of weeks that boardwalk is going to be accessible. Right now,
it's not connected to the land
yet. It's not
Really.
connected. We're waiting for some dirt work to get done on there.
Mm-hmm.
But from the loon, when you walk down by the picnic shelter, there'll be a path that'll go along there, and then that will connect to the boardwalk. And then when you come off of the boardwalk on the other end is where you get into that jewel of a walk. The locals remember it as Tin Can Alley. It always was called that. We're not calling it that anymore, but anybody who knows, who grew up here and is, it was called Tin Can Alley. It was an abandoned old road that people would go down, and they would have their little bonfires and things like that. And
really?
They would take their motorcycles and try to get up the hill, the big steep hills and that. And so it was just kind of a gathering place, but it wasn't groomed, and nothing was. It wasn't maintained. Yeah, it was a little bit more wild. And so right now, it's like you walk there, and it's like you're in a state park. It's right next to the highway, but you would never know it.
No,
it has the high steep banks, and it's just undeveloped, and it's going to stay
right at
that
the water's
way.
edge.
It is just beautiful. You see birds down there. You see wildlife. You have access that you can walk down to the lake, and
there's that one little spot where you can even go into the lake. Actually,
you can, and it's nice shoreline there.
Picnic down there. Yes. It's really pretty.
And so then you get to the end of that, and that alone is a nice walk. And then the final phase will be to go from there, and then that would just be a widening of County Highway 60, just some, maybe extra tar or something like that to get to the actual boat access.
Yeah, I was wondering because there is some properties coming.
There's properties there, and we wouldn't want to interfere with that, and we would just be on due road right away, and recognizing that we got a grant to be able to put that boardwalk in from the LCCMR, which is lottery money, and that the state gives out. And so there was a group of us that went down to testify before that committee in the legislature and we were awarded that grant to be able to finish our boardwalk.
For the boardwalk that is in the water
that is in the water right now. Otherwise, that wouldn't be there right now. We've had awesome support and fundraising from community members, memorials. I mean, that is the only reason we got the grant, is because we had already raised $100,000.
Okay, locally.
All locally, that we had done that, and through the Harryman 5K run, through the brick planter donations, just many different events. Pat Shannon made art pieces for raffles. I shouldn't have started because I hesitate as I might be missing something, and I apologize if I have. But the fundraising is, yes, my father's memorial money started it out. Yes, we got huge donations of memorial money from other families that we just would not have been able to do that with. But the $20,000 gifts and the $50 gifts have all been what's made that happen.
And if I may ask, is it probably public information? So there was several more $100,000 that were necessary to complete this project,
Yes.
only for the
Right.
boardwalk. So it's a true asset to
Right. The $100,000
public
was locally, and then the boardwalk itself and the finishing of the trail, probably our grant, was right in the $300,000 range.
Yeah, wow, what an investment. But it's so much, like it's a true gift. We can
is.
use it. Is it open year round then?
It will stay in there year round. Yes.
Right.
They're not going to plow it out or
No,
anything.
no.
I've always said I want that trail plowed in the winter too, but
Oh.
I haven't gotten that far yet. That's on my
Yeah.
dream list.
Yeah, I guess. True. I didn't think about that.
But it's a floating boardwalk. When we first applied for the grant, it was something that the Sentence to Serve people were making, and we had applied and had been granted that they would be able to do that. That's where some of our financial things came in that we ended up needing to do some more fundraising because that program was no longer in place when it came time for us to do the boardwalk. So it's a company out of southern Minnesota that has done it, and we've been very happy with it, how they've come in and it was so exciting when the ice was still on to see it be put on there, and they put the boardwalk on when it was still iced over.
Yeah, I saw it.
And then you could just see, as it was breaking up, and it'll stay in there in the winter since it's a floating one.
So it will be connected later in June yet to
Yeah.
shore?
Well, that's our hope. We had anticipated June 1 that it would all be done, and there was just some delays with the contractor that's doing the final dirt work. But just talked to him today, and Monday he's coming down there and
really?
starting work. So
Okay.
some cement pads will go down, and then that'll be some connecting. And I've already seen people out there fishing on it. And
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty. So right now we can go pretty soon, we can go from downtown, grab an ice cream cone or whatever, and then walk along the road past the swimming beach, Loon, and then we will go onto the boardwalk, which is also 500 meters, something like that, right? Like 500 yards almost.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then we are connected to the Tin Alley or whatever.
Tin
Yeah. Okay,
Alley.
now we found a term to that beautiful little walk, which is almost a kilometer. Like,
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
and so that's already complete pretty much
Yeah.
by this summer. And then we are. How long will it take to be able to go all the way to the public access?
The public
is that
access.
done next year? Or 2022?
That's a little aggressive. We're a small committee, and so we just have to reorganize.
But it's
in
planned.
a plan. It's in a plan, yes. And so it'll require more fundraising because when we finish this, our funds will be depleted when we finish this phase.
Okay.
So it'll just take more fundraising, and then we'll
Sure.
get to that point.
Okay.
Maybe some talking to the county. If you guys are listening, we need your help.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe somebody loves the idea and is listening to this program and
Yeah, there you go.
has a bulldozer and a couple of beers. Oh no, that wasn't that easy.
But just think you can do that all safely
Yeah.
with your families, with your
To walk.
young children, and you're not, and you can do it safely. And I think that's just really important.
Yeah, and we see many more kids again with bikes. I see many more
Yeah.
people out
It is
walking.
It's,
So it's
it's as a fan. For me, the sentimental part of it is awesome. My dad would just love it, and the fact that so many of our community leaders that have passed, those memorial monies went into that amount of money, to raise that, and how happy they would be to see that. That next generation is doing something to preserve and keep going what they started. And I think there's a real obligation that we all have to remember that they didn't work all those hours and put all that time and love for their community in there for us to just forget about that. We have an obligation to continue that, and I hope people do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
Yeah.
they will.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
mean, Vergas is a unique community, but it can only stay unique and special by everybody buying into that.
Yeah. I still think there's going to be a renaissance for rural America. I've been
I
saying
agree.
that. And I hope that places like Vergas will experience further growth. I think people are welcome.
They are.
It's really a cute place to call home. So
It
either
is.
you visit it, check it out. We have tourists coming all the time,
We do.
but it's
And
also really a spot where you can homestead.
It is, and I'm just a huge, buy local promoter, and so, that's a whole nother show, Dirk.
Yeah, I think so. I think we should deep dive into
Yeah, there you go.
the building lots and yeah. No, but it was very insightful. I'm glad that we have it. I'm glad to hear that we are going to be connected very soon.
Yes.
And just a little something we have, according to the situation, possibly some sort of a loony days coming, some sort of a opportunity to get out.
We're looking at options, recognizing that we have to have guidelines in place, we have to have safety in place. But with an outdoor festival, I will just say that the committee is trying to come up with ideas, recognizing that we still have to be responsible.
Yeah. So check in again.
Check in. Yeah. Keep updated.
The Facebook
Watch the
page. So we may have a day. It's August, huh?
It's in August. Yeah.
If it happens, then we will have opportunity to walk the walk.
Right. We were. That was our big year. We were going to highlight the trail being done.
Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned. We will definitely share if it's happening and what the program will look like. I appreciate very much coming in.
No, thank you for having this avenue for me to share.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
Have a good one too. Yeah, this was already our newest episode of the Lake Life Weekend podcast. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Tune in again next week with another great guest and updates. Always check out our website, lakelifeweekend.com, and if you have some comments, please feel free to email us at hello@lakelifeweekend.com, and you have a wonderful weekend ahead.